Hey guys, I wanted to quickly come on here and introduce a brand new episode of a brand new series I'm starting with my friend over at Resale Heroes. This is kind of going to be like a podcast, kind of like an eBay show where we take some questions and we answer them and we talk about different things themed in reselling. I'm super excited for you guys to see it. Over at Resale Heroes, they're running one of the largest eBay stores in Canada, which is absolutely insane. So I think there's a lot that you guys can take home from these episodes. And hopefully if you guys enjoy this series, we can make it a normal thing and continue it on for a little while. So if you enjoy this video, make sure to go on below, leave a like. Also, all the links to everybody's channels will be down below if you want to go ahead and check them out. And with that, I want you guys to jump right into this episode.
All right. Hey guys, Jeff here with Resale Heroes. I am here with Commonlad. We're doing a collaboration video today talking about sourcing and different kinds of sourcing. So why don't you introduce yourself and then I'll do the same.
Hey guys, I'm the Commonlad. Thank you so much, Jeff, for having me on the show. And we've got a lot to talk about today because we've got some super exciting stuff going on. But yeah, I'm the Commonlad. I resell part-time on eBay. And I sell mainly video games, but I've been expanding to other things. I resell with my partner, Resale, and together we're building a couple different stores on the platform. I shoot it all on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and document it all. And I'm sure there'll be links somewhere so you guys can find that if you want. But there's some really exciting stuff going on. And that's kind of what I do.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited too. I can't help smiling. So JF with Resale Heroes. So we are a small team of people running a pretty big eBay store. We're actually top 125 in volume in Canada as far as eBay stores go. So it's pretty significant. So we also kind of specialize in collectibles and video games. So that's kind of how we found Commonlad, because we're both in Canada. We're both selling kind of the same thing. And so this is the first episode of the eBay resale zone. So welcome. And make sure you watch till the end, because at the end, we're going to ask you a question that we hope that you're going to answer to help us for the next show. And today we're going to be talking about sourcing. So there's so many different ways to source. And where do we start? I'll let you go first.
Man, there's so many different ways to source. I think like in our niche specifically, because we're in the video game space and the collectibles space, it's a little different than what, other people would do if they're just generally selling anything on eBay.
Yes.
Obviously there's plenty of different ways to source, and that's everything from, going to the conventional thrift stores, which is very popular here on YouTube, all the way from whether or not you're doing wholesale, or if you're going into garage sales or marketplace, or getting, some individual connections with people who are going to supply you with products. There's really a whole bunch of cool ways, and there's no right or wrong way to do it, I don't think. But in the video game and collectibles space, there's a few specific ways, and we both sort of talked about this. There's a few ways that we prefer, or that we've been using to source most of our inventory, which I think is super cool. And maybe some ways that you guys haven't particularly heard of or thought about in the past. And I think that's sort of what we're going to be diving into today, more specifically. Am I right?
Yeah, so I'm actually writing stuff down so that I don't forget, but I think I'm just going to bullet point different ones, and then we can kind of go through them and just add to them if you think of something. So number one, a lot of people use the thrift stores, like Commonlad said, and that's, you don't know what you're going to find in the thrift store, and that's kind of part of the thrill. But a lot of people sell clothing there. That's where they get their clothing, they get their shoes, they get t-shirts, whatever. There's also classifieds, which is a lot of what we use. So in Canada, we've got Kijiji, which is a local ad site. There's Facebook Marketplace and all that stuff. You have suppliers. So those are people who you've built. I couldn't read my own handwriting. So you have suppliers who are people that you've built a connection with over time, that you have a relationship with them, regardless of how you've met them. But they regularly or semi-regularly sell you the good stuff. Not always the good stuff, but they can do the work for you, and you just buy it from them. And so there's another kind of that you mentioned that you use
in terms of suppliers, or in
Yes.
terms of
in terms of
suppliers.
Sourcing.
Well, yeah. So sourcing specifically, I've found there's been a lot of success in getting some suppliers myself, but also I started off very small, like just buying for my friends and things. And I sort of, tapped that whole market, if you will, or I've used all those resources. But more recently, as sort of built my brand up, I actually had a few people reach out on Instagram, different audience members for my channel and whatnot, who are selling me things. So I've gotten quite a few things that way. And I think that's kind of interesting. And I know that might not be relatable for some of you, but the way to look at it is, I know a lot of us were developing, Instagram followings, whether it's just 100 people or 1,000 or whatever. And these are all people that you can make a post about on your story or reach out to and invite to sell you things. If you know what you're selling, you can reach out and post about that you sell those things and that you're looking to buy them. And I think the last sort of way that we had discussed, and one of the ways I've gotten a lot of my inventory in the past, is through online auctions. And that would be through eBay and wherever the other sites are. I think Goodwill hosts their own on their website specifically, and a couple other ones. And that's been a huge lucrative way for me to get inventory. So I think those are all sort of the bullet points, if I'm right.
But those are basically the 5 main ways that are available for sourcing. So the way that we at Resale Heroes usually source our stuff is mostly classifieds. So the reason that we don't go thrifting for the most part, I mean, it's cool, it's fun, never know what you're going to find. You always find something fun, but there's not that many. So we live in a small place. We live in a town of 150,000 people. It's 3 towns put together that amount to that many people. So, I mean, it's still a city, but it's limited compared to bigger cities. And there's a few stores, but once you've hit the stores, I mean, you got all the good stuff. So, but you never know what you're going to find. So we run it as a business, and I can't spend 5 hours in a store not knowing if I'm going to get something good or not. So instead, I'll spend 30 minutes on Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji, or, in the States, they have Craigslist and all these other things. And I handpick what we want, what we need, what we don't have in the store. And I mean, we'll pass up maybe 100 ads because for different reasons, whether we already have it or we don't like the price or whatever. But when we find what we like, we'll contact the people, we'll go meet with them, and we'll buy it from them. So when you do the sourcing on the classifieds, usually you will pay like more than if you would have gone to the thrift store, but you can choose what you want. And for the most part, you don't get too many surprises. I'm just smiling because we do get some crappy surprises.
For sure.
But usually you get what you pay for, and you get what's in the ad, and it saves on time. So that means that if I only spend 30 minutes sourcing in a day, I have the rest of the day to do shipping, listing, and doing whatever else needs to be done, answering messages. So it's a lot more efficient than thrifting, in my opinion. But doing it that way, you don't get the things for a quarter or $1 or whatever as often as you do in the thrifting.
And can we talk about that for a second? Because I think that's one of the major differences between somebody that's reselling full-time versus somebody that's reselling part-time. It's like you have the time to go to all the different thrift stores and source things out. And by the way, like you say, it's the hunt, it's the adventure. There's a lot of thrill to that as well, but it's not necessarily the most economical. So you, working full-time, might be willing to pay a little bit more, be a little bit more selective with your inventory, and save some time there. And you're just buying back your time, right? Essentially.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. So I'm glad you brought that up, because so some people do the reselling as a hobby. They just want some spending money. They just, they just want to have a side hustle. But for people who are really building it as a business, time is money. Like, you only have so much time to go around. So a lot of people spend way too much time thrifting or buying and sourcing, and not enough time listing. So if you buy 10 times more than what you put for sale, you're never going to catch up. And you can only, if something's not listed, it can't sell. And you should see our death pile. I mean, it's shameful, but it's because we buy big lots. And for those of you who don't know what a death pile is that pile of stuff that never gets listed because it's at the bottom of the pile. But we have changed our perspective. So now we have a big table that the death pile is all in one place. So we know what is not listed, like we know exactly where it is. And so we have a visual on it. And for us, we see it as a queue as opposed to a death pile. So what's on there, we see it as something that we're working on getting listed, not just something that is never going to get listed. So we're really working on, we do list all the good stuff, but we also kind of dip into the death pile every now and then so that goes down.
Yeah, and that's an important thing. I mean, my death pile is all just sitting there in boxes, and I couldn't even tell you what's in it at this point. Some of it's been sitting there for so long, and that's a problem, right? But I think that's what you run into on like thrift store versus marketplace again. Sometimes in marketplaces, you're buying larger quantity to get a better price, and you can't necessarily do that if you're just part time, which means that you do maybe need to start out with a thrift store, pick out a couple items that you can deal with before moving on to maybe doing more bulk listings, which is when you become more of a business, you can start to pay, price per unit and all that stuff. But you have to be ready to deal with all that. And if you're just doing it part-time, you may not have all the time in the world to do all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a fair point as well. Like for someone who is just starting out, you need to have that balance between, so how much money do you actually have to start with? And how much time do you actually have to start with? So that's a fair, I mean, that could be a whole show in itself.
Another discussion.
Yeah. But so we started with $3,000, which is a lot more than most people would start with. But we have turned that $3,000. We started in July of last year. So less than a year and a half, 15 months or so. And that 3,000 turned into so we're sitting on about 200,000 of inventory. And we've made about 300,000 in sales in the past, whatever. So
okay, so can I stop you there?
Yes.
You guys realize how crazy that is? They turned 3,000 into that much in that period of time. It's just mad. So I'm sorry, I had to say that because that's insane to me. It really is. And we'll have another discussion, I'm sure, down the line where we can break that down and go more in depth in that. But that's mad.
It's a lot for sure. And people think that it all happens like by itself, but it doesn't. Like it was a lot of work.
The hustle.
Yeah, it was a hustle. It was a constant hustle.
Crazy.
But it's massive. It is massive. And but we scaled up, right? And when you're sourcing at our level, when we're selling 150 to 200 items a week, how do you find 200 good items in a thrift store consistently? Like you can't necessarily, well, it just depends on what you're selling. So we don't sell clothing. We sell basically video games and collectibles. So you don't find that as
you're
much
not
in the
that.
thrift store. Yeah. So having good suppliers who have the connections is so critical. So if I just go to the suppliers section, so the discussion for suppliers. So a supplier is basically like, how do you get suppliers? So you mentioned that you can, sometimes they'll come to you, sometimes you'll go to them. But for us, it didn't really happen like that exactly. So the way that it happened for us, it was more like organic. It wasn't really like an offer that was made. It was more like, okay, we bought a bunch of stuff from this person. So we started a conversation with them. Oh, so you sell a lot of things. Would you basically do this for us more often, but make us a good price? And we kind of have that thing going on. And so I would say we have 5 or 6 regular suppliers, and some of them are pretty big. Some of them have brick and mortar stores, like real stores. Some of them have just a garage full of stuff. Because some people, we have a supplier who doesn't basically sell anything online. He just does it all. I don't even know what to call it now.
Out of a store, yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, doing flea markets and just meeting with people. So he doesn't have the patience to list everything one thing at a time like we do. He'd rather buy everything for 50 cents and sell it to us 100 items for 75 cents and just make whatever little cut he's going to make and let us do whatever we're going to do. But suppliers will do the work for you. You just need to call them and be like, hey, John, I'll call him John. John, I need this, I need this, I need this. Can you get it for me? And I mean, within reason, within a certain amount of time, they can. And assuming you have a good, so you want to build those relationships with those people.
And so that's interesting that you say that, because I think one of the things I've heard and one of the things I've realized in this sort of market or this type of people, the resellers, right? Our community, people are so afraid to tell other people what they do. It's like you go into a store and you start picking things out, but you're like, okay, hide my eBay app. I don't want to show them that I'm looking things up. Okay, don't tell them what I do. You're at a garage sale. Okay, don't tell them that I'm going to resell this stuff, blah, blah, blah. That's exactly the opposite of what you want to be doing. That's the only way that you get suppliers is by telling people what you do, and exactly your approach. You go in there and you say, instead of going and hiding in the corner and trying to look up, the price or something, you walk right up to the front counter and you say, Here's my name. I resell stuff. Here's my card. Call me if you have stuff that you need to sell. And just like that, you do that, a couple of times, you get the weird response or whatever. Like, you might be uncomfortable a few times, but that's how you can walk out of there with the supplier. And I can't speak too much on this, to be honest. I haven't done it a whole bunch. I've talked to a few people here and there, flea markets, whatnot, said what I do and been able to get a couple connections that way. But the primary way of building connections is letting people know what you do, right? And I think that's one thing in this industry. People are ashamed of it or afraid of it or whatever it might be. You can't be. You just have to tell people what you do.
Yeah, so that's such a good point. And the thing is, I get a little embarrassed, and like I'm a full timer, right? And it's just the reason we get embarrassed. We're going to go deep here is because people have a lot of anxiety when it comes to social interaction.
Sure.
And we assume that they're going to react poorly because people don't want to get screwed over, right? So we think that if they find out that we are going to buy it from them for cheap and sell it for more money, that they're going to be mad. And don't get me wrong, some people do react poorly.
Absolutely.
Most people don't. Most people are like, oh, that's interesting,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
You'll get the occasional person who will want to build a relationship with you because of that. So I don't think we've ever lost a significant transaction because of that. But I will say that if you don't put yourself out there to let them know, how could you get suppliers? Because they don't even know what you do. And I'm gonna mention one guy who's one of our suppliers.
I think I know where you're going with this one.
Oh man, yeah. I talked to you about this the other day. So we walk into the shop. It's a shop we didn't even know existed. All right. So guy's got some cool stuff that we could never sell, but just cool stuff. And he has a lot of games, he has a lot of movies, just whatever. And I walk up to him and I'm like, hey, if I buy everything that you have on this shelf, so I mean, we're talking like something like this, like it was like over 1,000 items. Would you make me a good price? And I just looked at him like out of nowhere. I didn't even, no small talk, nothing. Like, he was like, yes. So he made us a fantastic deal. We walked out of there with like half his stuff. And again, not everybody can just walk into a store and buy half the store. Like I'm exaggerating. We didn't buy half the store, but we bought a full shelf. But even if you just said, if I bought 10 things or 20 things or 30 things, and all in the spirit of developing relationships. So we've been to his store like 4 times, and every time he's made us a really good deal. But maybe this approach is more appropriate for most people. What I'm about to say now. The last time that we went, so at this point, we already have a good working relationship with this guy. So I said, look, Jeremy, my business partner, we picked out like 60 good games. So we didn't just buy all the random crap. Like we picked games, like the good ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, look, I was talking to my partner. I'm like, look, the prices he has them at, we cannot flip this. So he has them at close to full price. So we have them all there. And there's like that awkward silence before negotiation begins. And I'm like, okay, here's the deal. We want these games. You want us to buy these games. But you have them priced. And he knows we're resellers on eBay, like whatever. But you have them priced at what I can sell them for. So for me to walk out the door with these games, I need you to make us a super deal. So he takes out his calculator, starts adding it all up. He's like, okay, so we're talking about $1,200 of games. How about 600? I countered at 500. And then he's like, how about 550? We're like, great. But I was straight up with him. I'm like, look, you have them priced at full price. I can't buy them and make a profit on this. So if you want to make a little bit of money, now's your chance. If you don't, I mean, we're just going to walk out. I mean, whatever. But so that's one example of a way that you could approach a supplier or a potential supplier or a store owner or whatever.
Yeah. And I think like being honest about your margins too. Like being able to say like, well, this is what I'm going to be able to sell. Like assuming they know that and you're going to tell them that you sell stuff, then you can approach it like, I'm going to sell it for X. This is what I need to put into it. I need to pay my hourly and then this. And then you can say, well, this is what it's worth to me. And that's a much more reasonable approach than just throwing out a number without them having any clue and them going, well, that's way too low.
Yeah.
And additionally, on top of that, like I guess that's basically the point I want to make. But basically, you don't want to go. You're never going to get 200% with somebody like that. Like you're not going to get a thrift store return.
No.
But you're building a relationship that in turn can provide you a consistent return as a business. And I think that's the important thing to note.
Yeah, because our goal is to sell twice as much as what we're selling now, actually. So to be able to source 400 quality items every week, I mean, that's a lot of work. So if I can go to this one guy and get 50, go to another guy and get 100, I mean, that's half my work that's already done. And I will say, so I tried the same approach with an individual recently who has a really nice collections of things that we desperately want, but he has them priced at full price. So he priced them all out. I made him an offer and he was insulted. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I mean, that's what, if you want all of them gone, this is the price that I can do. But other than that, I mean, with the shipping cost and the eBay fees, I can't.
Yeah, it's just not gonna be worth it.
So no.
Yeah, and that's not everybody will get it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But
not everyone's going to respond well to it, but you need to be comfortable in where you're at, right? So I was straight up with this guy. I'm like, look, because of this and because of that, this is the best that I can do. Does that work for you? No problem. Moving on. Yep. Right?
Exactly. I mean, yeah. Don't get emotional about it. Don't waste time with it. Just, just don't think about it, right? You go make your offer, whatever it's worth it to you, explain them the situation. And then if it happens, great. If it doesn't, whatever, you got to move on. But yeah, it's that idea of just going quick, going to all the different opportunities and different suppliers and making as many deals as you can. And I think that's sort of the approach that you're taking, and you can build those connections.
Yeah. And so maybe do you want to talk a little bit about eBay auctions and how that's supplied you for a while?
eBay auctions are stressful and exciting. Like, like to source on eBay, okay, if we're being honest, is not easy. You got to look through a lot of crap, and in order to find what you're looking for. We've managed to find a few different people that ran eBay auctions that actually became suppliers. Airval knows more about that. My business partner, he's actually developed a relationship with an eBayer who was doing a bunch of auctions. He reached out and said, "Hey, we'd like more. What do you have?" And we were able to make some deals not outside the platform. Actually, we ended up buying through for eBay issues, but we don't make, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we didn't go outside the platform eBay. Don't take our accounts down, but we did make some good deals there. But on the auction side, there's a lot going on. So we set our price that we're aiming to look at, and we don't bid right away. You gotta find the ones. So you're adding to your watch list all week long. I know, we'd probably spend about an hour a day, each of us, on the eBay auctions, and just seeing which ones we like, which ones have games or titles that we're interested in, and which aren't already priced out of our budget. You follow, maybe you follow 100 different auctions throughout the week, and some of them might be buy it nows too. Occasionally you'll get the buy it nows, which if you're looking for those, you had to go to the newly listed buy it now section and keep refreshing your page, and occasionally you'll get one of those. But for the auctions, you're adding them all to your watch list and you're waiting until they end. And now you've got all these timers going off all the time, trying to get to the auctions before they end, and you're trying to come at the last minute and snipe them for a good price. And I'd say out of the 100, you're probably only getting maybe 3 or 4 of them. And that's your take for the week. So if we're talking about time and we're talking about sourcing and trying to save time, because time is money in this business, is not exactly the best approach, right? And that's what we learned through doing it. It's, the supply is there, the inventory is there, and if you take your time and you look through it enough and you spend enough time on the platform, you will find the stuff that you're looking for. It's just how much time are you willing to put into that. And some people have search filters set up for all this stuff and different platforms that they use, that they enter the auctions in, they bid for them, and all these things that can help. But I still believe that building, supplier connections and things of that nature is going to benefit you more in the long run. But that is sort of the gist of eBay auctions. And I definitely used it to accelerate my business for a few years.
Because so that's a good point. So as far as efficiency goes, probably not the best, but it is another option that you have. It gets shipped direct to your door, et cetera, et cetera. But back to the supplier, as you mentioned, they can grow with you, right? So the more your business gets bigger, the more you would have a capacity to buy. So like we have one guy in particular, like he has everything. Like it's crazy how much stuff he has, but it's like sorry if you're ever watching, but he's like a peddler, right? So he's always got this stuff. He
always got stuff.
He has beer glasses, he has video games, and like we're buying like 5 of this and 5 of that, and then when it sells we buy more. But when we get to the next level, so we're starting to have a conversation with him about, okay, anytime you find this, buy it for us and we'll buy it from you at a certain price. And anytime you buy this, and et cetera, et cetera. But he's an established local reseller who doesn't sell on eBay and doesn't want to bother with it. So he's the thrift store guy and the pawn shop guy and the whatever flea markets. And we don't have the time for that. So we've got our little drones. We've got our people.
You're sending them out on a mission.
Yeah, we're sending them
awesome.
on harvesting missions. But so that's cool. And the more you buy from them, again, the more they want to deal with you. And he calls us like every week or two and just whatever. And he has so much stuff we can't buy it all. But the more that you build your capacity to buy, the better relationship you'll have with these people. And they can do all the collecting for you. And you just need to press a button and buy it from them, essentially.
So cool.
So that's the dream right there.
Super beneficial. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's one of the, probably the best way, if we're being honest. It's probably the best way to source and grow on eBay is through that. Now, it's not to say that you can't start out in the thrift stores on eBay auctions and doing all this other stuff. Not to say that you can't be large, especially in other niches, right?
Yep.
Like we discussed with clothing and jewelry or whatever it might be that they have an abundance of at the thrift stores. You know, there's an opportunity there. But in our niche specifically, when you're talking about collectibles and things, that seems to be the route that most people need to take to get to the next level is to develop some suppliers and connections.
Yeah, it makes sense. So at this point, I want to ask you guys a question, the viewers. So we want to make a show like this every week or so. And we said we're looking at about Thursday evenings. Do I recall correctly?
That's it.
5 o'clock Eastern time, if I can read my own writing. So we have a bunch of stuff that we can talk about. We have all this experience to share with you. However, ask us your questions. Tell us in the comments what you would like us to talk about, and we'll do that in future videos and kind of try to incorporate all that in, because this whole idea is for us to share with you to help as many people as possible, and for this to become as interactive as possible as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's so much opportunity here, guys, for some viewer questions and to answer some of your guys' stuff and hopefully provide value in that sense. And I think the more and more of that we can get going on this series, the more, just genuine it will be, and the more of a community we can develop around this. And I think there's some really cool stuff that can happen on this show. So I'm very excited about it.
Very good. So make sure you like and subscribe. eBay Resale Zone. I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, drop us your comments, and we'll have links in the videos to both our channels.
Everything's linked everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah. And we'll see you in the next